Jones. "How long apart did they call?"
"About 2 weeks. The second applicant came on the day of the last snowfall. I looked that up. It was March 27th.
"Do you know, Warren," observed Average Jones, "I sometimes think that part of your talents, at least, are wasted in a chair of Latin."
"Certainly there's more excitement in this hide-and-seek game, as you play it, than in the pursuits of a musty pedant," admitted the other, cracking his large knuckles. "But when are we going to spring upon friend Livius and strip him of his fake toga?"
"That's the easiest part of it. I've already caught him, filling a fountain pen as if he'd been brought up on them, and humming the spinning chorus from the Flying Dutchman, not to mention the lifting of my newspaper."
"Nemo mortalium omnibus horas sapit," murmured Warren.
"No, as you say, no fellow can be on the job all the time. But our problem is not to catch Livius, but to find out what it is he spent after for the last 3 months."
3 months? You're assuming that it was he who aspired for work in the library?"
"Certainly, and when he failed at that, he set about a very carefully developed scheme to get at Colonel Graham's books anyway. By inquiries he found out the old gentleman's fad, and proceeded to get in training for it. You don't know, perhaps, that I have a corps of assistants who clip, catalogue, and file all unusual advertisements. Here is one they turned up for me on my order to send me any queer educational advertisements. Wanted, daily lessons in Latin speech from a competent Spanish scholar. Write, Box 347, Banner Office. That is from the New York Banner of April 3rd, shortly after the strange caller's second abortive attempt to get into the Graham library.
I suppose our Livius figured out that Colonel Graham's theory of accent was about what a Spaniard would have. But he couldn't have learned all his Latin in 4 months.
He didn't. He was a scholar already, an accomplished one, who went wrong through drink and became a crook, specializing in rare books and prints. His name is Enderby. You'll find it in the Harvard catalog. He's supposed to be dead. My assistant traced him through his Spanish Latin teacher, a priest."
"But even allowing for his scholarship, he must have put in a deal of work perfecting himself in readiness of speech and accent."
"So he did. Therefore the prize must be big. A man of Enderby's caliber doesn't concoct a scheme of such ingenuity and go into bondage with it for nothing. Do you belong to the Cosmic Club?" The assistant professor stared.
"No," he said.
"I'd like to put you up there. One advantage of membership is that its rosters include experts in every known line of erudition, from scarabs to skiing. For example, I am now going to telegraph for aid from old Millington, who seldom misses a book auction and is a human bibliography of the wanderings of all rare volumes. I'm going to find out from him what British publication of the late 17th century in Latin is very valuable. Also, what volumes at that time have changed hands in the last 6 months.
"Colonel Graham went to a big book auction in New York in early March," volunteered Warren, "but he told me he didn't pick up anything of particular value."
Then it's something he doesn't know about, and Livius does. I'm going to take advantage of our Roman's rather un-BC-like habit of reading the daily papers by trying him out with this advertisement."
Average Jones wrote rapidly and tossed the results to his coadjutor, who read, "Lost. Old book, printed in Latin. Buff leather binding, a little faded."
"It's safe to be that," explained Average Jones.
"No great value except to owner. Return to Colonel Ridgway Graham, 11 Carteret Street, and receive reward." The advertisement made its appearance in big type on the front pages of the Baltimore paper of the following day. That evening Average Jones met Warren for dinner with a puckered brow. "Did Livius rise to the bait?" asked the scholar.
"Did he?" chuckled Average Jones. "He's been nervous as a cat all day and hardly has looked at the library. But what puzzles me is this." He exhibited a telegram from New York. "Millington says positively no book of that time and description of any great value. Enderby at Barclay auction in March, and made a row over some book which he missed because it was put up out of turn in the catalogue. Barclay auctioneer thinks it was one of Percival, privately bound volumes 1680 to 1703. An anonymous book of Percival Library, De Meritis Librorum Britannorum, was sold to Colonel Graham for $47, a good price. When do I get in on this? Signed, Robert Bertram." "I know that treatise," said Warren. "It isn't particularly rare." Average Jones stared at the telegram in silence. Finally he drawled, "There are books and books and things in books. Wait here for me." 3 hours later he reappeared with collar wilted but spirits elate, and abruptly announced, "Warren, I'm a cobbler." "A what?" "A cobbler. Mend your boots, you know." "Are you in earnest?" "Certainly. Haven't you ever remarked that a serious-minded earnestness always goes with cobbling? Though I'm not really a practical cobbler, but a proprietary one. Our friend Bertram will dress and act the practical part. I've wired him, and he's replied, collect, accepting the job. You and I will be in the background." "Where?" "Number 27 Jasmine Street. Not a very savory locality. Why is it, Warren, that the beauty of a city street is generally an inverse ratio to the poetic quality of its name? There I've hired the shop and stock of Mr. Hans Fichtel for 2 days, at the handsome rental of $10 per day. Mr. Fichtel proposes to take a keg of beer a-fishing. I think 2 days will be enough." "For the keg?" "For that noble Roman, Livius. He'll be reading the papers pretty keenly now, and in tomorrow's he'll find this advertisement." Average Jones read from a sheet of paper which he took from his pocket. "Found. Old book in foreign language, probably Latin, marked Percival. Owner may recover by giving satisfactory description of peculiar and obscure feature and refunding for advertisement. Fichtel, 27 Jasmine Street." "What is the peculiar and obscure feature, Jones?" asked Warren. "I don't know." "How do you know there is any?" "Must be something peculiar about the book, or Enderby wouldn't have put in 4 months of work on the chance of stealing it. And it must be obscure, otherwise the auctioneer would have spotted it." "Sound enough," approved the other. "What could it be? Some interpolated page?" "Hardly. I've got a treatise in my pocket on 17th century bookmaking, which I'm going to study tonight. Be ready for an early start to meet Bertram." That languid and elegant gentleman arrived by the first morning train. He protested mightily when he was led to the humble shoe shop. He protested more mightily when invited to don a leather apron and smudge his face appropriately to his trade. His protests, waxing vehement and eventually profane as he barked his daintily kept fingers in rehearsal for giving a correct representation of an honest artisan cobbling a boot, died away when Average Jones explained to him that on pretense of having found a rare book, he was to worm out of a cautious and probably suspicious criminal the nature of some unique and hidden feature of the volume. "Trust me for diplomacy," said Bertram airily. "I will because I've got to," retorted Average Jones. "Well, get to work. To you the outer shop, to Warren and me this rear room. And remember, If you hear me whetting a knife, that means come at once."